Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce is the foremost bilateral chamber in Nigeria. Founded in 1977 to promote trade and investment between Nigeria and Britain, the chamber is affiliated with the British Chambers of Commerce, which provides access to a network of 53 chambers of commerce across the UK and 49 other international affiliates. Our cardinal goals are trade facilitation, positively influence policy, communicate government policy, networking, enrich membership experience. Started in 1977 with just 20 foundation members, our membership base has grown to over 400 corporate members from diverse sectors of the economy. From a small space in Ebani House, Broad Street, to a state-of-the-art facility, NBCC Plaza, located at Olubumi Owa Street, Lekki Phase 1. With over 5 new initiatives, the Chamber has lined up events and activities planned out for the benefits of our members and non-members.
Good morning, everyone, and sincere apologies for the late start. It's not the practice of NBCC to start the programs late, but we just have a mix-up with our moderator. So good morning, everyone again. My name is Adeola Aziz, and I am the Vice Chairman of the NBCC Energy Group. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the NBCC event themed Renewable Energy, Innovation, Transition, Opportunities, and Challenges. I am particularly delighted to see our council and EXCO members here with us this morning. Our distinguished speakers, Ms. Caroline Ebombo, ably represented by Mr. Sele Inegbedion, and Mr. Akitayo Raymond, ably represented by Mr. Wali Elegbede. Good morning. Our moderator is not here yet, and our sponsors and all our esteemed guests who have joined us this morning, including those online. Thank you for joining and waiting till we started now. Thank you very much. We will now rise, if you don't mind, as we observe the national anthem of Nigeria and Britain. Please rise. Thank you. Thank you all. Please be seated. So we get cracking. Before we begin, allow me to please state some housekeeping rules. For all of us in the room here, questions will be answered during Q&A session. Please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you promptly. For those of us online, if your volume is too low, you can check it now. Please check that the volume, that your system is in the right volume state. The event is being recorded and will be available live on our YouTube channel, the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. For comments and discussion, please use our chat icon. Submit your questions via Q&A. Only these will be answered during the Q&A session. For posts on social media, kindly use the hashtag NBCC Sharing Experiences 23. Thank you for listening, and at this juncture, I would like to warmly welcome our newly minted chairman and president in council, Mr. Ray Atali. Please give him a very warm welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those who are here and those who are online, we want to welcome you to yet another program of our chamber, which promises to be an eye-opener or a fillip for better action by all stakeholders. This is a welcome address. It was tagged. Good morning, Deputy President Akin Oshuntuki, who is here present. Good morning, past presidents who are online, patrons, vice presidents, members of council here present and online, members of the chamber who are here, our sponsors and guests who have made it to this event. Thank you very much for coming. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this highly anticipated event, which is themed Renewable Energy, Innovation, Transition, Opportunities, and Challenges. First, I would like to introduce our chamber, your host this morning. This chamber was set up in 1977 to promote trade and investment between Nigeria and Britain. The chamber currently has over 400 corporate members from diverse sectors of the economy. We are an international affiliate of the British Chamber of Commerce, which gives us access to a network of 53 chambers of commerce across the United Kingdom and 71 other affiliates internationally across the world. In a world where energy shapes the very foundation of societies, the focus on renewable energy has taken center stage like never before. As we convene here this morning, we are not only convening minds and talents, but we are embarking on a journey to uncover the key to sustainable and thriving energy future. The theme of today's event resonates deeply in the current global context. The transition towards renewable energy sources is no longer a choice, but a necessity. As we confront environmental challenges and endeavor to meet the energy needs of a growing population, this transition opens up a world of possibilities. Our discussions throughout the day will delve into the intricacies of innovation. What are we doing to innovate? The dynamics of transition. What are the challenges, the pitfalls, the area of opportunities that abound, and the challenges that we all must collectively address, some of them human. I'm delighted, once again, to share a few thoughts, with you. Renewable energy has been defined as energy from natural resources that are replenished at higher rates than they are consumed. I'm sure some of the subject matter experts will give us more about this. This is just a teaser. For many countries, including Nigeria, there is an urgent need to not only design, which we have done, but to implement large-scale energy transition programs, which will see to the wide-scale adoption of renewable energy sources in place of the more popular fossil fuel options like oil and gas, and in some cases coal, which is currently the practice. We cannot combat the crisis foisted on us by climate change resulting from high greenhouse emissions if we do not implement, once again, implement energy policies that are low on emission, that are both sustainable and affordable. It is simply not enough to make policies to look compliant. We need to implement and to monitor. The UN, in its environmental program report of 2020, did say that if heating continues, it will have a devastating impact on the planet, causing hunger. We have hunger here already. Flooding homes along the coast. It's happening to us this season, as well as more wildfires, hurricanes, and droughts. The same report identified 6 sectors that can deliver more than 30 gigatons of emission reduction that will help limit temperature rise to just 1.5 degrees centigrade. Those sectors they listed as including energy, agriculture, food and waste, buildings and cities, nature-based solutions, industry, and transport. But just by stopping uncontrolled deforestation and ecosystem degradation, we can save 5.9 gigatons annually. Imagine the improvements we stand to have in our environment and our health if we simply cut less trees and allow plants and natural vegetation to live alongside our concrete mansions. The report warns further that if we do not cut vehicle emissions, death from exhaust fumes in cities will rise by more than 50% in 7 years' time. Nigeria has a 2021 Climate Change Act, which is highly commendable. It was a pioneering move of sorts in West Africa. But putting all aspects of it to practice is where the emphasis should be right now. How compliant are we? And do we really know the benefits? Some of us in the room may not even know that we have a Climate Change Act. There is a need for public enlightenment campaign in this regard so that citizens will be better informed about carbon emissions and why they need to transit to less harmful practices. So at this point, we are bringing on board those who know better than I do. I just pretended to know, all right? But I'm itching to sit and listen to the array of experts that we have assembled, some of whose names have been mentioned already. So I'm going to yield the floor shortly, and we'll be hearing from the Managing Director of Shell Nigeria Gas, Renuwable, Folake Shoeton, the Chief Executive of Ikeja Electric, Caroline Ebobo, the Chief Executive Officer of All On, and Raymond Akintayo, Group Managing Director of Cabota Group. Some of them are ably represented here. Our moderator, Rolake, is running a bit late, but she'll be here shortly. Rolake Akinkwe Filani, she is the Chief Operating Officer of Mr. Africa. Your dedication to innovation and sustainable practices is inspiring. Your stories and experiences are undoubtedly going to enrich this session and guide the path of this country forward. You never can tell how far the deliberations here can go. You sometimes don't need a packed room to influence policy. What we know how to do is to take the nuggets that you are going to share today and escalate to the powers that be. And I know that we have new brooms these days, and like Muhammad Ali said once, I'm a new broom that sweeps clean. The new broom will probably implement better and help us to ensure that our environment is safer for all of us. Once again, I extend a heartfelt welcome to each and every one of you here present. It's a testament to your commitment that you are here this morning. Together, we are going to embark on this journey, and I hope you stay here till the end. On that note, I've come to the end, but before I go back to my seat, I want to use the opportunity. Today is the birthday of one of our past presidents and patron, Asiwaju Michael Olawale Cole. So we are wishing you a happy birthday. I know he's online. He's in Abuja. I spoke with him yesterday. We wish you all the best for a great future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and President in Council, for setting the tone of our event today. Again, I repeat, it's renewable energy. We're going to be talking innovation, transition, opportunities, and challenges. And to give us a goodwill message, at this juncture, I would like to read the profile of Mr. Ralph Bobo. I hope I pronounced that properly. Right. Mr. Ralph Bobo is the Managing Director of Shell Nigeria Gas Limited, SNG, and is responsible for leading the company and safely delivering its domestic gas growth aspirations. He's passionate about unlocking the domestic gas value chain and driving industrialization via increased gas utilization. Prior to joining Shell Nigeria Gas, Ralph held various management positions within the Shell group of companies. He has accumulated extensive experience and expertise through his diverse role in both the downstream and upstream business, including supply and trading, asset commercial, non-operated ventures, governance, and gas integration. He holds a master's degree in chemical engineering and an MBA. Ralph has a strong zeal for nurturing talent, and he manages a diverse team that aims to bridge the Nigerian energy gap. Ralph is a father of 4 boys, now men, and his interests include fishing, sailing, traveling, and golf. Please warmly welcome Mr. Ralph Bobo to give his goodwill address.
Thank you so much. Please, sorry, excuse me. Distinguished guests, esteemed members of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the already established protocols. Before I go into my goodwill message, so the name is Bobo. Bobo, but everybody calls me Bobo, and it's okay. but I thought it's an opportunity to also let it out. And the reason why fishing is one of my hobbies, because I'm a rivers man. I'm actually a fisherman. Yeah. So it's actually a privilege to be here at this event, to this important gathering where we are coming together to discuss pressing issues that lies at the heart of our energy landscape. So the theme of today's event underscores the transformative journey that the energy sector is undergoing globally. That's why we're talking about transition. It's a journey that shapes our future and defines the legacy we leave for the generation to come. So renewable energy has emerged as a critical topic in our rapidly changing world. As we collectively face the challenge of climate change and strive to create a more sustainable future, the exploration, development, and utilization of renewable energy sources have become essential components of our energy landscape. So today's event is a testament to the shared commitment of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce and its esteemed members to foster partnership, unlock the immense potential inherent in renewable energy. We gather here today to reflect on and celebrate the progress and innovations achieved thus far in this sector, while also acknowledging the challenges that lie ahead. In pursuit of a more sustainable future, innovation plays a vital role in transforming how we produce energy. By fostering new technologies, business models, and ideas, we can pave the way for positive change. Collaborating among the private sector, government agencies, and academia is essential, to overcome the challenges we face in transition to renewable energy. So once again, today's event focuses on renewable energy, innovation, transition, opportunities, and challenges, thus highlighting the various paths that are available to us. We have the challenge to utilize clean and renewable energy sources like wind, solar, hydrogen, bioenergy to drive economic growth, create jobs, and ensure environmental sustainability. At the same time, we recognize the importance of gas as a transition fuel as we move towards the renewable era. And also, as the MD of Shell Nigeria Gas, one might wonder what's the relationship between that and renewable energy, and I think that's the point of trying to make that. As we make that journey from what you know today to where we want to be, gas plays that role of a transition fuel. But we must acknowledge also the obstacle that lies ahead on our journey to a renewable energy future. Transition demands substantial investments, the development of policies, regulation, infrastructure enhancement, and building of capacity. So as leaders, policymakers, and advocates, it is our responsibility to turn these challenges into opportunities, fostering sustainable economic growth and creating a brighter future for generations to come. As we progress towards the renewable era, we recognize and value the significance of gas as a transition fuel. Gas has a pivotal role in energy transition to provide a cleaner alternative to traditional fossil fuel. Its lower carbon emission and reduced environmental impact makes it a viable solution to bridge the gap, between conventional energy sources like the one the President already mentioned before, the coal, the traditional hydrocarbon, and eventually getting to a widespread adoption of renewable energy. So at this critical juncture, recognizing the importance of gas enables us to strategically plan and implement solutions that align with our commitment to a sustainable future. By harnessing the potential of gas as a transitional fuel, we can effectively manage the transition process and pave way for a greener energy landscape. At Shell Nigeria Gas, we recognize the responsibility we bear in leading the charge toward a cleaner, more sustainable energy future. And we are committed to bridge the energy gap by contributing to the Decade of Gas ambition by providing manufacturing and industrial customers with clean, reliable, low-cost alternative to liquid fuel. Shell Nigeria Gas currently supplies gas, like we mentioned, like I think we see in the advert. Now it's gotten to about 150 manufacturing and industrial customers. And our heartlands include Abia State, Ogun State, and River State. And there's also an ongoing expansion project into Bayelsa State and Oyo State. So eventually it will increase to 5. And the plan is still to grow more. Gas is a cleaner source of energy with much lower emission. And the irony is actually that it is also much cheaper than the alternative. And so far, we have been able to reduce the costs for our customers and enabling them to run a more efficient business. We have built a gas distribution network of about 150 kilometers now and still going. And this enables us to reach our customers. And we have also pioneered strategic partnership with alternative gas distribution delivery technology operators, like people operating in the CNG space. And what that does is it allows us to reach the off-grid frontier customers before our infrastructure gets to them. So we are proud of such collaborations, and we have resulted in reducing emissions from the use of liquid fuels, such as the diesel, which is the common one that everybody knows, and also, of course, fuel oils as well. A key enabler in this journey will be better incentive granted to the transportation sector to spur wider adoption by the populace. We see that already also picking up, but I think a lot needs to be done in that space as well. Our commitment to extend beyond the boundaries of traditional energy solution as we actively invest in energy projects and strive to be a catalyst for change. We firmly believe in the power of collaboration, and through partnership with government agencies, businesses, and local communities, we can unlock the true potential of reliable and affordable energy in Nigeria. With gas, we are driving industrialization, we are providing employment, we are improving internally generated revenue in the states where we operate. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the only wholly owned Nigerian subsidiary of an international energy company, currently operating in the domestic gas space, SNG is a symbol of Shell's commitment to clean, sustainable energy access and security in Nigeria and, of course, across the globe. So events like this provides us a platform to share experience, engage in fruitful discussions, build lasting partnership. So together we can explore innovative solutions, identify emerging opportunities, and ensure a successful and just transition to a more sustainable energy future. I am optimistic that we will continue to see progress in this sector, and forums like this will provide opportunity for us to continue to discuss the progress we've made and to strategize on how to position ourselves to take advantage of the growing market. I once again want to express my deepest gratitude to the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event and providing this platform to the industry leaders, energy and commercial parastatals, policymakers, and outstanding thinkers to converge, exchange ideas, and collectively shape the path towards a renewable energy future. Today, let us work collectively to unlock the potential of renewable energy, ensuring access to affordable and cheaper energy such as gas, which for now is the transition fuel. Let us embrace innovation, seize opportunities, and confront the challenges that lies ahead. Together, we can create a sustainable, prosperous, and greener future. Thank you.
Can we do better than that? Thank you. Mr. Gbobo. Mr. Gbobo, thank you very, very much. As we proceed very swiftly, welcoming our moderator who has arrived, we're delighted, or I am delighted to introduce her. Now, this woman is a woman of many, many parts. Trying to edit her CV or her profile was a challenge, but you'll understand when I finish that nobody else is better qualified to moderate this particular session. Rolake Akikugbe Filani is an award-winning and versatile senior corporate executive. Rolake has more than 17 years track record of professional work covering the energy, infrastructure, and financial services sector in Africa. She's currently the Chief Commercial Officer of a leading infrastructure developer, Mixter Africa, part of the ARM Group, helping the group craft and execute its commercial, market expansion, revenue optimization, and growth strategies across subsidiary operations in Nigeria, Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, and Côte d'Ivoire. Having built a solid profile as a thought leader in her area of expertise, she's a regular feature on media platforms like CNBC, BBC, CBN, and CNN, and has published scores of articles on Africa energy infrastructure and markets. I will also include Arise News. She was recognized as the top 275 global female influencer executives 2020 in energy by the UK's Energy Council, and in 2015 won the Best Africa Oil and Gas Analyst Award from Energy Africa US, and was in 2016 recognized as one to watch in African energy by Centurion LLP. She was also recognized as a young economic leader in Africa by the Choiseul Institute in 2018, 2019, and 2020, and was listed as the most influential people of African descent. She has a BSc and an MSc degree from the London School of Economics, LSE, and a joint MBA degree from the London School of Economics, HEC School of Management, Paris, and NU's Leonard Stern School of Business. Rolake also sits on the Global Advisory Board of Persistent Energy, Africa's Climate Venture Builder, the Board of Gender Focused Equity Fund, Aruwa Capital Management, and listen to this, she also sits on the board of the trustees of WIMBIZ, Nigeria's leading women's network. Please, I think we should give her a clap for that. She's also a founding member of the Women in Energy Network. Yes, Rolake is also a career development and growth mentor via her multiple streams of Impact TM platform, and coaches executives and professionals in communication and public speaking through her Article 18 coaching platform. Rolake, please stand up and get the started.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aziz. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know anybody else who always feels a bit awkward when they're doing a citation like that. I don't think we can ever get used to it, but we thank God for all the accolades. So great to see you all here today. I must first of all sincerely and deeply apologize for being late. I wasn't actually late for this session, but I was late getting here early, and it's very unlike me. I just got my timings mixed up. So, well, the topic we have today is renewable energy, innovation, opportunities, transition, and challenges. So before we get to it, I'm going to introduce our guest panelists. The first person I'd like to bring on is Caroline Mbumbu, the Chief Executive Officer of Allon, and she's ably represented by Mr. Sele Inegbedion, the Allon Hub Manager. So Caroline sends her apologies, and I'll just give a short citation about her, and also Mr. Inegbedion. She has previously worked for the Rockefeller Foundation and the AFDB and has extensive African private equity experience. And of course, Mr. Inegbedion, in his own right, is responsible for Allon's venture building strategy for early stage off-grid energy businesses. So please welcome up to the stage, Mr. Sele Inegbedion, representing Caroline Mbumbu. Second as well, we have Mrs. Folakemi Shueton, and in this stage of hybrid events, she's joining us virtually online. I hope she's there. She's the CEO of Ikeja Electric, which is the largest electricity distribution company in Africa. She began her career actually in Sahara, working in aviation. She worked at British Airways and Virgin Nigeria, and has built a formidable career with the Sahara Group since 2009. She became CEO of Ikeja Electric in 2020, leading a team of over 3,000 employees in the next phase of power sector transformations. So please, a virtual round of applause for her. Thank you. Welcome to the stage, the virtual stage, Mrs. Shoeton. And last but no means least is Dr. Raymond Oluwaseyi Akintayo, GMD of Kabota Group Limited, who is also ably represented by Mr. Wale Elegbede. Dr. Akintayo is a versatile engineer acclaimed for his visionary leadership of the Kabota Group and is a distinguished fellow of the Chartered Institute of Information and Strategic Management and a member of the Nigeria Society of Engineers. In his own right, Mr. Elegbede is a dedicated and results-oriented COO and has over 15 years experience in the sector. I must also add he's both an undergraduate and graduate of mathematics. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Elegbede. I was going to say that ably representing people is actually now the trend. But for whatever reasons, due to their schedule, they're not able to be here. So thank you very much. So we're going to commence the discussion. I must also really say a big thank you to the MD of Shell Nigeria Gas, Mr. Gbobo, for his opening remarks. I know that Shell has been quite a formidable proponent of the energy transition, and it's good to see that with the investment they've made in Olon as a business. So I always like to start with statistics, and one of the first things I thought I would begin with here today is really around the cost differential, which has become more prominent today in running fossil fuel powered sources of energy versus renewable energy. So this was an interesting piece of statistics I found, and it says that the cost of running a gasoline genset, that's petrol genset, before the subsidy removal was less than 50 naira per kilowatt hour. While diesel, the most expensive genset source of power, was about 250 naira per kilowatt. Now, with the removal of the subsidy, the cost of gasoline-powered generation has risen to more than 100 naira per kilowatt hour. And you'll agree with me that as that price continues to rise, the cost of powering your generator will continue to rise. But a standalone PV, that's photovoltaic solar system, works out at around 60 naira per kilowatt hour. And if you then incorporate lithium ion storage, it pushes it to around 100 naira per kilowatt hour. Now, on paper, that sounds very compelling. But the question is, why haven't people made the switch? And I'm sure you agree with me, over the last decade or more, we've all been talking about renewable energy, but it's not like our city and our country is flooded with solar panels. So in addition to understanding the opportunities, we also want to understand what the potential challenges or obstacles may be. So the first question I want to throw out to all the panelists today is really to ask them one big question. And I'd like to start with Mrs. Shoetan online is, just how big do you think the renewable energy opportunity is in Nigeria today? Mrs. Shoetan.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Confirm that you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Well, I can thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to participate in the panel with you. Okay, so the question is, how big do you think the renewable energy opportunity is in Nigeria? Well, I mean, in my own view, I think that the renewable energy opportunity in Nigeria is quite vast, and I believe it holds tremendous, potential for us as a country, both economically and, of course, in environmental transformation, which is critical. According to data that we got from the IRENA, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency, Nigeria's solar potential is estimated to be about 6,500 terawatt hour per year, which is obviously several times higher than the country's current electricity consumption, which is at about 3,570 megawatts hour. Additionally, to that, Nigeria's wind potential is approximately about 76 gigawatts, which shows that there is abundant resource available for renewable energy generation in Nigeria. And if you look at our growing population and the increasing energy demand, the renewable energy sector presents a significant opportunity for addressing Nigeria's power deficit while reducing, the greenhouse gas emissions. The Nigerian government's, National Renewable Energy and Efficiency Policy aims to achieve 30% renewable energy penetration by 2030. And this will demonstrate the commitment to tapping into this extensive opportunity that I mentioned earlier. Moreover, the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation, estimates that Nigeria's renewable energy market could attract up to $10 billion in private sector investments by 2023. And for me, this investment potential simply underscores the substantial economic gains that can be made if we're able to harness the renewable energy opportunity in the country. So for me, in conclusion, the renewable energy opportunity in Nigeria is vast, with the abundant solar and wind resources that far exceed the current energy consumption. With the ambitious government policies that is coming up, increasing private sector investments that we're seeing today, and a focus on sustainability, I think Nigeria is poised and more than ready to harness this opportunity to drive economic growth, which will also provide some form of energy security, and more important, preserve our environment. Thank you.
Isn't necessarily bankable. It's nice to hear all those figures. No doubt the potential is there, but I'd like to hear from you now, Mr. Sele Inegbajon. From your vantage point of view, you work with a lot of companies in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. How do you size and quantify the renewable energy opportunity?
Thank you, Rolake. Morning, everyone. Great to be here, involved in this discussion. So we at All On, over the past 5 years or so, have invested in several renewable energy developers, particularly focused on the off-grid space. And one thing that we have learned, I guess, as a rough guide to quantifying the cost of electrifying a home or a business, the general rule of thumb is about $1,000 per connection. Obviously, that varies if you're looking at solar home systems, mini-grid developments, and depending where exactly you are establishing that mini-grid deployment. So one thing I like to do is always look at volume and price, and that gives you a sense of the opportunity, right? So if we look at Nigeria as a whole, about 200 million people, probably conservative nowadays, and the statistic is about 75%, again, very conservative, of the population either have no access to electricity from the grid or are underserved by the grid. So you take the 75%, that's about 150 million, and that gives us about 30 million homes based on the national average. So if you take 30 million times the $1,000 on average, you get about $30 billion. So we start that as a baseline estimate of the value size of the opportunity. And I think that compares quite well with the Energy Transition Office's estimate of Nigeria's requirements to achieve universal electrification by 2060 of $40 billion, because they've sort of targeted it straight line as 1 billion every year. And so we think that 30 to 40 billion dollars represents the size of the opportunity overall. And that's before you even start to look at it from an annualized point of view and all the ancillary requirements that renewable energy opportunities bring, productive use applications, devices, and what have you. I mean, in summary, aligned with aligned with the comments earlier, it's very vast, it's huge.
Fantastic, thank you. So Mrs. Shoeton has given us the opportunity, her perspective in terms of just the capacity potential especially, and you've then framed it predominantly in monetary terms. So Mr. Alegbede, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You work with Cabosa Energy Group. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the opportunities in that space based on the work you do.
Thank you so much, Rolake. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so renewable energy has great potential to grow in Nigeria. Nigeria is so blessed and so vast. We have almost everything we need to grow in renewable energy. We have, enough sunshine. It's enormous. We have winds. We have, all the natural resources that can power renewable energy. So when you look at the Nigeria being located, this region in the world, we have enough sunshine that can drive solar energy. And when you look at the solar energy, right, you realize that it is an aspect of renewable energy that has not been tapped, And when you look at other renewable energy that you can get from wind, we have the wind energy. We have enough when you go to the northern part of Nigeria. You have enough, drive for wind. We have the tidal wind also in the sea that can also capture, And when you put all this together, you realize that this renewable energy that we're talking about, has enormous use that have not been tapped into. And if we tap into it, based on the analysis that have been given, both financially and the opportunities are enormous from this sector, you realize that if Nigeria as a nation goes into tap into the opportunities that in renewable energy, it will not only increase our economic value, it will also increase job opportunities for young men and ladies that are out there, they're jobless, and whereas there are opportunities lying down fallow that have not been taken advantage of. And then when you also look at it, you see that when we downplay on the use of fossil fuel and embrace the use of renewable energy, you realize that our environment becomes more cleaner and we dwell less in greenhouse, and then, we have, as it is right now, we are talking about zero emission. Okay, so if we embrace renewable energy, then you realize that definitely there will be zero emission of pollutants in our environment and making our environment more, better for us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also glad you mentioned the issue of job creation, because SE for All, Sustainable Energy for All, the international organization affiliated to the UN, recently estimated that for every dollar that's invested in renewable energy project, you're creating about 25 jobs versus every dollar that's invested in a fossil fuel project, which delivers about 5 jobs. So I think the point about value creation is well noted. So I'm going to come to you with this question, Mrs. Shoeton. The discos occupy a very, I guess, influential is the word. I was going to say powerful, but they occupy a very influential position within the entire energy sector value chain. They're essentially the last mile in that value chain, you could argue, before the customers. So giving your perspective on the offtake market, do you see opportunities as a business to invest in renewable energy technology? And if so, how can an Ikeja Electric or even an Ecodisco, not all your other comrades in the sector, actually also push the agenda, given that you're already able to tap into a ready market potentially?
All right, thank you very much, Rolake. Indeed, Ikeja Electric definitely, we recognize the potential of renewable technology in this space. According to our regulator today, statistics shows that, the information they share with us regularly shows that renewable energy accounted for only about 0.2% of Nigeria's total electricity generation in 2020. And obviously, this represents a massive opportunity for an expansion, and of course, even this strategic investment that you kind of mentioned. But us at Ikeja Electric, we're actively exploring partnership with relevant organizations to be able to drive this complete renewable energy projects in Lagos State. Our commitment to reducing carbon emissions align with our mission, not just in Ikeja, but Sahara Power Group, or bringing energy to life, responsibly being the operative word here. And also with the Nigerian government goal of achieving this 30% renewable energy penetration by 2030, like I mentioned earlier on. One of the things that our parent company, the Sahara Power Group, has done in recent times is that we launched a green energy project in collaboration with Hello Electric. And the essence of that was to leverage on the renewable energy sources, which is close to us being able to close the energy gap in Nigeria. Also, a commitment to a more sustainable future starts with having a clear energy transmission plan. And that comprises of 3 stages. In the short term, our plan is to be able to make sure we can boost the efficiencies of our plant. We want to be able to eliminate gas flaring, achieve at least 20% energy efficiency. We want to be able to introduce renewable offices and target at least 70% emission reduction, I think by 2027. And the medium term, the plan is that's between 2030 and 2040. We want to be able to enhance, the plant efficiency, increase office renewables to about 50%, I think, by 2025, and also introduce electric vehicles at 30% by 2040. And the target for us is to at least have 41% emission reduction, I think, by 2035 as well. And in the long term, that's between 2050 and 2060, is for us to just maintain renewable usage and switch from fuel generators and vehicles by prioritizing, carbon offsetting. So for us, Ikeja Electric is partnering with renewable energy sector experts today. We're also actively working with organizations like World Bank and the REA, the ARE initiative, that's distributed access through renewable energy scale-up for renewable energy projects in Lagos State. And the whole essence behind that is to try and ensure that we can encourage entrepreneurs. We're trying to ensure that we leverage on technology to ensure that we can bring a lot of these goals and objectives to life. So it's something that we are very passionate about, and we have certain projects. Some of them haven't really crystallized, so I wouldn't like to go into details of those projects today that we are doing, not just at the disco level, but in the Sahara group to achieve this objective.
Of renewable energy initiatives you're pursuing. The one that was particularly interesting was your reference to having electric vehicles within your fleet.
Yes.
Actually today use solar energy either in their office or in their residences, their private residences. Okay. Sure. I would reckon maybe that's about 30% of, and the panelists, both of you. Okay. So how many people of you would consider switching to solar energy if you don't already use it? Okay, a smaller number. And how many people are not really aware of what it would take to switch to solar energy if you're not already using it? Okay, a few people didn't raise up their hands. And the reason I asked this question is, at the start of this discussion, I talked about the fact that the data, the empirical evidence shows that it's a much cheaper option. And people often juxtapose this whole CapEx versus OPEC, that it takes a lot to acquire a solar energy unit, but over time, the OPEX is negligible. So given your work with solar energy companies, you're investing in solar energy companies, can you just tell us what types of services are they providing? And the reason I ask this is people sometimes would tell me, well, with my generator, if my generator breaks down, I know which maintenance engineer to call. I know how to source for parts. I know the company that produces it. But with solar energy, you often find, even for off-grid, that people can't really figure out, how it all works. So can you just maybe shed light on what types of services are available locally and what types of innovation or products are the companies you're funding putting out there in the market?
Sure, thanks, Rolake. You're absolutely right. Awareness is a big problem. In discussing what our investee companies actually provide, I might also mention what Olon is doing to increase the community's awareness. But in general, We have about 50, at least 50 investee companies that we have put capital into and are providing solar solutions across the country. Solar solutions vary from solar home systems. I guess the best example would be your Lumos yellow box. Most of us are familiar with that. Higher capacity systems, solar energy systems. And then you get into the community, into the village communities, and you've got sort of standalone, off-grid generating systems, mini grids, we call them, that can then power about 100 to 1,000 communities, depending on the capacity and size of those mini grids. Our companies also offer other solutions, such as battery as a service, and we might discuss a little bit more what that means later on. It's really just a swapping mechanism, allowing rural community dwellers to come take a charged battery, go use it up, and then bring it back and replace it for a fully charged one at cost. Cold storage and other productive uses. So there is a variety of different solar solutions. In terms of maintenance and follow-up, I can appreciate that because solar is not as mainstream as your general fossil fuel solutions, the aftercare perhaps seems not as available, but our developers do also put features in place and mechanisms in place to ensure that there is some aftercare, some maintenance, perhaps once, twice a year. They ensure that panels are cleaned, they inspect the battery levels, and so on and so forth. I think the challenge here is the vast majority of Nigerians are not aware, because if nothing else, everyone uses, what do we call it? I better pass my neighbor, and those sorts of things. So we decided that aside from our core business of investing and deploying capital, we run sort of like a three-pronged approach at Allon. There's the hub, which is the venture building, which I run. But importantly, there's also the enabling environment arm, and through that, we fund research that drives awareness. We host a radio show on a number of radio stations. We have callers come in, and we've been doing that for about 2, 3, 4 years. And the questions that we get, the insights, very interesting, but people leave a lot more enlightened. And then the last thing to mention really is about that idea you mentioned that solar is a lot more expensive. Yes, there is an upfront capex exposure which can be prohibitive, but you get past that hurdle, the cost of operating your the operational cost of energy or power to you is negligible compared to your traditional generators and fossil fuels.
Yeah, and of course, we know that there are different means to acquisition. You can do lease to own instead of an outright purchase. Okay, so coming to you, Mr. Elegbede, we often talk about those who are on one side of the pond, I guess proponents of fossil fuels, although I don't think there's anybody in this season who really digs their heels in on one side of the fence. People are a lot more malleable to the idea of renewable energy. But the argument we also often hear is that gas still remains central for base load, electricity. And then we know that we have different consumer markets, so residential, commercial, large-scale industrial. And the perception is that solar will only really be in the domain of off-grid residential, that we don't see many successful utility scale or large solar IPP projects. I think Africa only has a few. Kabota Energy does both gas and renewables. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how you're seeing demand shift and what types of consumers are requesting either of both sources, and whether hybrid is becoming more prominent based on the work that Kabota Energy does.
All right, thank you so much, Reno. Okay, so for renewable energy, the fossil fuel and gas-fired engine, we realize that fossil fuel has its own disadvantages, especially in the area of environmental pollution and all that. And the thought of coming to renewable energy, okay, so when we look at renewable energy, so we are talking about the solar, talking about the wind energy and the likes. And you agree with me that these renewable energies, they have the potential for power to be stored in order for them to be able to carry loads, right? So in a home, for example, because solar, for example, is intermittent, you cannot, so in the morning, you can trap your light, your sunlight, in the night, what happens? All right, so also the wind, so also every other renewable energy. But when you talk about gas-fired engine, you see it's constant, it's reliable, in the sense that once it's powered on, it's on. And then you realize that the waste from renewable, from gas-fired engine is pure, is clean, because the waste is just carbon dioxide and water, which is not contaminating the environment. So now, when you also look at Nigeria, Nigeria is a developing country, right? And we are also looking forward to development, and we are looking at we are yearning for industrialization. And so when you look at this, you realize that renewable energy, like solar energy, we don't have the capacity, because there is an energy minimum required for industrialization, which renewable energy cannot provide. So that go for gas engine, who has the capacity, is more reliable to do that, right? So for me, it depends on the size of what you are consuming that will determine what you go for. So if it is just for homes and residents, just single home and residence, okay, so you can have renewable energy like solar, system, and that could survive maybe in the night. In the morning, there's light. In the night, you can use the stored, energy to power through the night. But also know that this also comes with some disadvantages, because, for you to get the storage facilities also a bit capital intensive, to store, energy. The storing facility for renewable energy. So, it's a mix, right? So, but for industrialization, for high-powered electrical usage, you have, gas engine is recommended. And then for homes, right, that, their consumption is not on a high side, right? It's minimal, let me put it that way. You can go for renewable energy, so that works.
Thank you very much for those insights. So coming back to you, Mrs. Shweta, I want to ask you a twofold question. The first one is really around funding for companies in this space. And maybe I'll share a bit of the mixed example. So one of the things that we're doing on one of our affordable housing projects is that we're currently about to conclude IFC EDGE certification, which is how we kit out buildings and make them more green. And that's because we need to tap into long-term funding for that project. But across all our developments in the Lackaway axis, we've had to now look at a gas-to-power IPP, which makes sense. So I think there's certainly a world in which solutions can exist side by side. So what I'd love to hear from you is, how would you now frame, if there's a need to finance a project or develop a new project, do you see opportunities to be more creative and innovative so that companies and businesses can tap into a more diversified pools of funding? Because to some extent, Ikeja Electric is doing that. You're investing in renewable energy, but you still work in a space that is heavily reliant on gas to power. What would be your thoughts?
So if I understand your question, what you're asking is, how can companies from a customer's perspective, in terms of being able to fund these projects, what perspective are you asking the question?
Perspective from a company, from a corporate perspective, how do you position yourself to fund projects, particularly because investors are a lot more keen about emissions reductions, the transition to net zero. So how are you able to tap into new sources of funding as a group, because you're heavily reliant on gas as a source of power?
Okay, remember I mentioned earlier on that we are working, or we're trying to partner with World Bank. So a lot of the funding that World Bank has kind of tried to provide is geared towards clean energy projects. And what we are trying to show is, I think the last speaker was spot on when he said, you have a mix of customers today. You have customers who are high consuming customers, and you have, the regular non-commercial customers who don't really need to pull power, and the source of power that require varies. So for us, the important thing is to be able to show that our strategy or our long-term strategy aligns with being able to incorporate this clean energy projects. And once we're able to establish that with organizations that are bringing in funds, like the World Bank, for example, then they're willing to support us with those sort of heavy investment that is difficult for us to be able to account for today, considering our tariff structure. So by the time you're able to at least get funding that is cheaper than commercial funds, and you have a longer moratorium period. The important thing is to be able to show the funder like a World Bank, and I think there's even another company we're talking to, I think Lionsgate. The important thing is to show how you want to be able to effectively deploy that project. For us, we have projects around renewable places to underserved areas who don't require heavy energy uptake like the industrial companies. And by the time you do the mix of the funding required to be able to improve your infrastructure, you're able to have a combination of the funding sources from either commercial banks who, kind of have high interest rates, or banks like the World Bank or IFC, who tend to have a more single-digit interest rate. So that's pretty much what is critical to be able to show how you want to effectively ensure renewable energy is part of your plan in terms of improving energy access in Nigeria. And that's what we've just done to be able to attract funding, and it's as a corporate organization.
Today in Nigeria, almost every company, if you read their annual report or you look at the About Us section on their websites, they have a net zero target. How many companies here have net zero targets? I'm sure everybody knows that we have a net zero target, but there's a great deal of skepticism around, there's this term called greenwashing, where people want to be seen to be green in order to either get new partnerships, tap into new pools of funding. But then if you audit and you scratch under the surface, there are questions around whether you're really, really green. And even the people who are part of the green campaign, they still fly in aeroplanes that use jet fuel, aviation fuel. So it's really hard sometimes to be quite black and white. So what would you, when you look at some of your companies, even some of the companies you invest in, they still have a carbon footprint. I mean, we all have a carbon footprint. But in terms of you're an investor, you're not just somebody who helps coach or train. What is your threshold really, given where the Nigeria market is today? Because we're starting from a very low base. And this transition is not going to happen overnight. In fact, I think for decades, the transition full of gas, I think, is going to be around for decades. And we kind of need to reckon with that. But what are some of the absolute basic minimums you would look at to say a company is truly committed to a green transition? Would it be in their value chain? Would it be how they employ suppliers? Would it be in their own operating environment? What would it be for you as a funder?
I like the irony that you highlighted there about everyone talking green, yet we're flying around the world with fuel-charged airplanes. And Nigeria is so behind the curve that we do have to make some allowance, but there's got to be a clear path to getting to that zero target. So today, absolutely, it's good as well that Olon, being a family member of Shell in Nigeria, subscribes to a number of very stringent HSSE protocols. and we translate that to our investees as well, they need to subscribe to those safety and security and environmental standards as well. We appreciate that along the value chain and the production line, there is going to be some carbon emission production, but we are working with, it's more qualitative now, today. We expect that we should be able to fine tune this over time. But I think what we always want to see is that the money, for every dollar that we are putting in, how much solar, for instance, or renewable energy has been deployed by our businesses. If they've employed staff, what are those numbers? So there are certain different other metrics that we look for, perhaps, to maybe net off the carbon generation. We are proud that today some of our portfolio companies moving further up the value chain.
Are you okay to name some of them?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sure, please.
If you look at the renewable energy space, in terms of the value chain, upstream we would call production, manufacturing and assembly, of which there's very little in the country today. And then downstream is the obvious distribution. Today, we have in our portfolio the likes of Oxano Solar. Oxano Solar is, I think, the leading manufacturer assembler of solar panels. They've been operating a 10 megawatt facility in the Festac area, but have recently completed the establishment of a 100 megawatt facility in the Lekki area. That should be commissioned before the end of the year. And the extent that they're going to ensure that value is preserved in the country also promotes, if you like, a reduction in the carbon footprint of other companies that they will then be supplying, because you then eliminate, to an extent, logistical issues, importation and all of that, because you're doing a lot of that domestically. We've got Sulfur Energy as well. I'm happy to share that that's owned and led by a female entrepreneur, Sandra Dozier. They're also doing amazing things in the solar home system space, and are just about completing their own assembly plants as well in Calabar, which should be operational before the end of the year. And so I guess in a roundabout way of answering your question, where we cannot totally control certain aspects of a company's process, you've got to transport, you've got to haul components to the further regions and rural communities to deploy.
Using diesel trucks.
Using diesel trucks, exactly. We can start to, at least as a portfolio, looking at it from a portfolio perspective, start to drive more localization. So there's a lot more carbon benefit, a lot more economic benefit, and a lot more value for the country.
Great response, and I like the pragmatic approach, given where Nigeria is. So, Mr. Alegbede, I made a reference to diesel trucks, and recently the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu brought out the presidential compressed natural gas initiative. I think Lagos had also rolled out an initiative. In fact, that was on electric vehicles with a Chinese company, I think the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles globally. And then we had this situation politically where subsidies were removed, put a spotlight on renewable energy. We've had the PIA, we've had the Energy Transition Plan. Now, as a private sector observer, do you think, as a country, we have a cohesive strategy around the energy transition? And depending on what your answer is, what would you like to see more from a policy and regulatory perspective to help the development of the space? What would Kabota Energy, for instance, say to the government today?
Okay, thank you so much, Nolake. Okay, so for me, operating in this space is quite a bit challenging as it is right now. When we look at the gas engine side of our business, for example, the gas-fired engine, we depend solely on gas, the natural gas, which we don't really have control over, and we have to leverage on our partners, suppliers, to get gas from them. And this, we are getting them in dollars. And then the logistics in getting this gas to our various locations, we are still being quoted for in dollars. And so, we just want, so these are some of the things that, we look at and we begin to wonder. And so what we are trying to do as an organization is to also do a kind of backward integration, okay, into getting involved in the gas, and then also in the logistics, whereby we are, right now as I speak with you, we are bringing in some gas engine trucks, now the first batch about 10 of them, for the logistics, so that we can completely dwell within that space of renewable energy. Okay, so for me, government needs to do a lot more from the perspective of investment in renewable energy. For example, they have to push, give facilities to individuals and corporate organizations that have the technological know-how, that are interested in going into this business. Because I can tell you that in running business for us, we take facilities to get, these are gas engines that are quite expensive, and we are getting them in 2 digits. And when we are getting them in 2 digits.
Sorry, when you say 2 digits, in terms of the cost?
Yes.
The rates, interest rates.
Interest rates, yes.
Okay.
Like 20%, 28%. And that's, is really affecting business. And whereas we can actually access this at single digits from the central bank, but you see that the process of getting this done is also complex. So you don't really have access the way, you're supposed to have access to it as an organization. You have to, Nigerian factor, play, have its own role, in assessing facilities from, the central bank and all that. So this, is affecting business. So I want a situation where, government will make this process a bit seamless. Once you have your commercial bank that you are working with, and you can, through the commercial bank, you can access, facility from the central bank, and that closes it. Okay, so apart from that, I also will encourage government to set up training institutes in renewable energy, encourage our universities to dwell in take courses in renewable energy, because that is where the world is going now. And if we don't have that in place, we will be lagging behind, because the world is going, at a faster pace in this space, and we are still foot dragging. I can say categorically here that we can name, by our fingers, the higher institutions we have in Nigeria that are running courses in renewable energy. We don't have them. And so this is key. If we are going to renewable energy, then we should be serious about going to renewable energy. We should have our mindset cultured on the fact that we need to bring out experts, in this field, and that is the only way we can have a good result as expected in this space.
Thank you very much, and especially for highlighting the issue of skills and education, because I definitely think there's a gap there. So, Mrs. Shoetan, I want to ask you a similar question. I just want to check that she's still online. I know she was pressed for time. I presume she's still online.
Online,
yes.
I'm here.
Yes. So, Ikeja Disco, in one iteration of its life, used to be a public sector organization, of course, now in private hands. So you have quite a great vantage point in terms of understanding the challenges of working with regulators and the like. What would you like to see from a regulatory and policy perspective that would further incentivize companies in your space to invest more in cleaner sources of energy, or to scale what they're already doing across the economy?
Okay, that's a set of questions. Because I'm heavily regulated.
Yes, I do. That's why I asked.
What I say, but I think I would go from government policy. And the truth is that regulation and obviously policies play a huge role in trying to achieve this objective that we have established is critical to the development of the economy. And I believe that those two things, government policies and regulations, that pivotal drivers for this renewable energy adoption in Nigeria. So in that regard, I think that when I think about the Nigerian Energy Support Program, that's the NESP, they have promoted the development of renewable energy projects, through some of the initiatives, the mini grid acceleration scheme. However, the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index also indicates that streamlining these regulatory processes and just generally providing, I think, financial incentives for renewable energy projects can definitely expedite this transition that is needed, and I think we've established that. And so if we have the right type of policy and of course regulation that can attract the necessary investment required in the sector, I think players will be able to achieve this energy transition. You heard the last speaker talk about single-digit interest rate. Already, as it is, the projects are already, they're expensive as it were. So if you're funding them using double-digit interest rates, it's not going to make the project viable. So I think we have the right law and Electricity Act of this, the new one of 2023. There are also robust renewable regulations to, I think, guide the adoption of this renewable energy transition and mindset. But for me, I think it's really beyond policies. There's just continuous need for continuous collaboration between all the relevant stakeholders and just removal of the bottlenecks. The reality is that energy access in Nigeria is still very low, as we know. We understand the need for clean energy now and even in the future. But the number one priority obviously is to ensure that you increase energy access. And so because we want to increase energy access in Nigeria, because we know the direct impact it has on the economy, what must happen is that the policies and the regulations must make sure it is balanced for all the stakeholders, where you are able to combine the different energy sources to make it affordable for the end user and ultimately make it even worthwhile for other entrepreneurs that want to come to the space and the existing traditional power companies like the discos and the generating companies, and of course the renewable energy promoters. I think it's important that there's collaboration, and once there's collaboration and understanding in trying to achieve the problem, the policies will mirror or the information that is got by the discussion that is held by all the stakeholders in the value chain. Well, I hope you heard me. Oh, wow. Well, I'm speaking to myself. Hello?
She has that confidence. Okay, so please, if you have questions, please put them together. But I had a couple more questions for the panel in the room. So, Ms. Inegbejon, one of the things that we often talk about is affordability. And if the fossil fuel industry has taught us anything, it's not an easy government policy choice. We know what has happened with the removal of subsidies and the ripple effect it has. And the argument has long been that let's focus on the production side. You mentioned Oxano Solar, which is probably one of the few companies that comes closest to local manufacturing. I don't know that anybody actually organically manufactures solar panels or component parts here. However, on the storage side, I know that we have an abundance of lithium resources in terms of minerals for batteries. So would you support perhaps, for instance, a subsidy on the manufacturing and production of solar parts in Nigeria? And what are some of the other incentives that companies in your space that you're working with are looking to regulators or the governments for to help them either with importation, assembly, or anything that will retain value here locally? in Nigeria?
Thanks, Rolaka. I think subsidy at the production end, of the value chain really, in my mind, is what really makes sense. If you start there, you're able to preserve as much value along the value chain, where external or international players in the value chain are concerned. Subsidy at production at the local level will also preserve more value in country. And you can then transfer those gains down the value chain eventually to the end user, in this case, the mass population of low-income earners. And they are the ultimate beneficiary, what we are trying to do here. I heard a story that, I can't remember whether it was with Elon Musk or something, that there was some talks about doing a transaction for Nigeria's lithium reserves or whatever. And the discussion around whether, we would be able to produce here. But I'm not sure that went very far. But the point is, those are the sort of conversations that we should be having. If we are removing subsidy at the consumption end, we need visibility and transparency as to where those savings are being deployed. You're going to boost the economy. You're going to support businesses. To the question about the government's role and what they can do more to support businesses. I mean, I'm encouraged today by the involvement, of the federal government in the national discourse around energy transition and renewable energy adoption, and the agencies that have been set up, like the Energy Transition Office. Speaking with a number of the personnel there, these are serious-minded people, and there was something you mentioned earlier, the various energy blueprints that have been rolled out over the years and how fragmented the landscape seems. But we're hopeful that there is some sort of convergence, on the horizon. I think, the government, the people having the ear of the government to what their needs are, in terms of levy reductions, tax waivers on the important things that matter from an importation point of view, as long as production locally is not yet up to speed. I would also, in terms of benefit for the companies, I would also maybe extend my response more to the private sector as well, and talk about collaboration amongst us in the finance space. The point about double-digit interest, obviously, is a significant one, and is a painful one for a lot of businesses, because what are the margins that the businesses generate to be able to support these high interest financing options. I think one thing that we can do is have a better appreciation for the risk segments along the production or the business of renewable energy, so that the financing instruments or the financing types are properly matched to the particular risk segments, and where everyone is chasing grant opportunities today. But does everyone deserve the grant opportunity? Assessing that the grant opportunity is tailored to maybe very early stage startups so that they can get to that commercial point. It's targeted to research. It's targeted to the more risky areas that we know commercial funders will not put their money behind. And then other areas of financing guarantees, for instance, the likes of InfraCredit today are getting a lot more involved in the space. And these are the sort of things that you need to be able to de-risk the sector to make it more attractable for the finance community. We need to be talking more. But the last point is there is a burden of responsibility on the developers and the operators themselves. They need to be investment ready. We have found that a lot of companies, they seek financing for these opportunities and these projects without themselves being ready to play their part in what is essentially a contract. Can they deliver on their obligations? Can they grow their business? Are they able to demonstrate? So that's part of what Olon does through my vertical, training businesses to become investment ready, helping them understand from a strategy point of view, from an operational point of view, the things that need to be optimized, helping them with governance and legal support, just those various layers that we know that investors want to see. By the time you're able to present these things to investors, you start to de-risk significantly the projects or the companies, and you make it more compelling for investors to want to invest at more reasonable rates. So there's a lot of work to be done at various levels: government, the private sector on the funding side, the private sector on the operator side. But I think we are slowly moving in the right direction.
Fantastic. And I like the burden of responsibility you place not just on the regulators, but the operators. So my final question for the panel discussion is to Mr. Elegbede, and I'd like to get your thoughts on the rage around electric vehicles. That subsector has a lot of naysayers in Nigeria. Every time you raise electric vehicles, people start saying, well, how are you going to power them? And it's like the argument we hear all the time. But what opportunities do you see for electric vehicle solutions to thrive? I mean, Lagos State is rolling out something, but on a larger scale, is it truly a viable option? I know you're an engineer, right? So it'd be good to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Electrical vehicles cannot be, the adoption of electric vehicles cannot be underestimated, because when you look at the advantages of using electric vehicle compared to the use of fossil fuel to power your vehicles, you realize that the cost implication cannot even be compared in the first instance. Right now, you can see the subsidies being removed from the fuel, right? So you are buying a liter at about 560 something, 568 naira or thereabout. And one thing we've looked at is when we looked at these vehicles using petrol and gas, because as it is, some vehicles are being converted now, even your regular vehicle, to gas. And we realized that it takes you like 5% of what you'll have spent on your normal or regular vehicle. So now to talk about electric vehicle. So first of all, the driver of electric vehicle is power. So are we sure that we are going to have sustainable power supply? That's why we are talking about renewable energy coming into play. And if you have if that is secured, and we have secured electricity, then the use of electric vehicle will be recommended, because you agree with me, you buy electric vehicle, you don't have where to charge it, you get to first fuel station, charging station, no light, they run on diesel for quite a number of hours, they are out of diesel, and then they look at how much it costs them. You know that when you are charging from there also, you are billed. Right? So if they are using diesel to power, so the bill still come back to you, so it doesn't make any difference. So I would say that to enjoy electric vehicle in Nigeria, first of all, we need to ensure electricity supply is stable, right? When we have a stable electricity supply, then, we roll out electric vehicles. I would want to have one. I remember then that Ben Bruce, when he was in the House, the one before the last, he was actually projecting electric vehicle, and it marvels me that nothing happened, even at the government level, nothing happened. I think the guy showcased things so that we can have our thinking in that direction, that this is the way to go, right? But nothing happened. So for me, electric vehicle is good to go, but what about electricity supply?
Okay, great. I would also even throw in the infrastructure. Our road infrastructure has to be on point for that to also thrive. Thank you very much for the insights. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into the Q&A formally, but I want to do a check with the organizers that we don't need to do anything before the Q&A. I think we've already done the sponsors video. Oh, no, we haven't? Okay, so we'll do the sponsors video first, and then we'll go into the Q&A. Thank you.
Shell Nigeria Gas is committed to supporting Nigeria's industrialization through domestic gas distribution to manufacturing plants and industrial users. A large portion of industries, smaller businesses, and homes continue to rely on generators for electricity. At SNG, we provide our customers with cleaner, more reliable energy as a lower-cost alternative to liquid fuel. Shell Nigeria Gas, SNG, is part of the recently launched Shell Energy Nigeria, SEN, line of business. Building on over 2 decades of SNG carrying out domestic gas marketing and sales business in Nigeria, SEN will provide global support in expanding the role of gas in power generation, local industry, and to help provide new energy solutions across the country. By providing this energy, we assist in building a stronger Nigerian economy. Incorporated in 1998, SNG is the first and only wholly owned gas distribution subsidiary of an international oil company in Nigeria. The company is certified ISO 14001, a certification that reflects that its operation is at the highest of industry standards. SNG currently operates a growing world-class gas transmission and distribution network of over 138 kilometers. It operates several distribution systems, including Agbaraota in Ogun State, the Aba cluster in Abia State, and the Port Harcourt cluster in Rivers State. The company is in a growth phase and recently signed agreements to build infrastructure and deliver natural gas to customers in Lagos, Oyo, and Bayelsa states. Our customers cut across several sectors of the Nigerian economy: pharmaceuticals, fast-moving consumer goods, glass, ceramics, steel, to plastics, and power. Currently, over 120 industrial customers are connected to our gas supply network. In Abia State, SNG has already completed a 20-kilometer gas pipeline project connecting to industrial hubs in the state. These include Agbo Hill, Osisioma, and Ariaria industrial zones. The 20-kilometer pipeline has enabled the supply of gas to major industrial customers, including the Ariaria Market Energy Solutions Limited, AMES. AMES is the Independent Power Project, IPP, consortium that provides electricity to the popular Ariaria International Market, the largest leather shoemaking and open store market in West Africa. Ariaria has over 37,000 shops and an estimated 1 million traders. Rapidly expanding its operations in Nigeria, Shell Nigeria Gas signed a 20-year agreement with the Nigerian Gas Marketing Corporation for the domestic distribution of gas to industrial customers and manufacturing plants in Lagos and Ogun states. In the new deal, SNG will also extend its distribution network to Badagry to serve a new market in the border community. Our operations directly impact the local population through our direct social investments in education, road safety, and community health. The value chain we sustain improves internally generated revenue and creates thousands of jobs for Nigerians.
Thank you. A round of applause for our sponsors, Shell Nigeria Gas and Kabosa Energy Services. Thank you. So we already have some questions coming in, and I'll start with a couple of the online questions first. So we have a question here for Mrs. Folakemi Shoeton, and this question is from, I believe, a lady named Tosin Ojikutsu. And she wants to know this. My clients have excess energy being generated through their solar systems. Who in Ikeja Electric can we reach out to in order to get those clients paid to import energy to the grid? Import tariffs used in the UK and US. I guess she's referring to some sort of net metering type arrangement. Mrs. Shoeton, were you able to gauge that question?
I responded to her.
Oh, you already did. Okay, fantastic. Yes, you're online on Zoom. So we'll take another question here for the panel, and I'll leave this one open for response. What ideas do we have to help residential clients with finance options? Our experience suggests that the upfront cost is always what puts clients off from wanting to proceed with installation. People are aware it's just very expensive. Also, good quality products have 10-year to 25-year warranty, so aftercare should be minimal. What do we need to do to help customers with finance? I think maybe Stella, you probably want to take this. Yeah.
Sure. So in the financing space for consumers, I mean, we touched on this very briefly during the discussion. There are various payment options for your solar systems, if you like, depending on whether or not the residents want to own the assets, or whether, similar to the way we pay for, we consume and pay for power today, whether they don't want to own the assets and just pay for the power they consume. You've got your outright purchase options, you've got your lease to own, and you've got your power as a service. And we find that a lot of consumers in the commercial, in the urban space, tend to, opt for the lease to own and the power as a service. There are options for financing the outright purchase with your commercial banks, if you like. But also increasingly, a number of the operators in our portfolio are offering some of these financing options to consumers as well, to the extent they themselves are able to get funded, obviously at reasonable rates. So there are options out there. I'll definitely be happy to explore this further. Bear in mind, we are the investor to the operators, so there may be a conversation to have directly with the operators. Maintenance, ongoing maintenance for the equipment, like you said, is moderate. We've seen that our companies provide, I think, maybe the first year is free, and then you've got some biannual or annual follow-ups, to make sure that battery levels are fine, that the panels are cleaned, especially during the Harmattan dusty periods and what have you. But then the costs associated with these follow-up checks as well are quite manageable.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. I was speaking to a solar entrepreneur who told me that we could, if we had a stable grid, be moving to grid parity with regards to renewable. So essentially what he means is that assuming our grid was reliable and stable, the margin between the cost of getting your power from the grid and getting your power from a renewable energy solution would be very slim. And so in the absence of a stable grid system, the renewable energy option, the argument is very strong. I don't know if any of you have any thoughts on that, a follow-up on that, whether anybody has any comments to make on that. No? Ms. Shoeton, no? Okay.
Interesting point to note. I don't have a comment, but it's definitely a comment that I am going to be discussing internally with my colleagues.
Okay. I don't know if Mr. Shoeton has anything to say on that. Otherwise, we can move on.
No, it's spot on. It's correct. It's absolutely correct. I just wanted to say that in addition to this question that was asked, CapEx and OpEx discussion with regards to the cost of renewable energy, one of the things we are doing is that we are partnering with renewable energy developers who are very willing today to take on that upfront investment cost of installation. And what that simply then does for the end user as the customer is that we are able to blend that cost with our current cost and then apply that to the tariff. But then it takes longer for the customer to, because they're paying for, it's applied in their tariff, they don't have to worry about that upfront cost themselves, but they're paying for that cost over time in the tariff, which might be a little bit more, but they're not worried about, or at least they're not bogged down with the burden of having to do that upfront investment initially. So those are some of the things that we are doing as an operator today.
Okay, thank you very much for that perspective, Ms. Shoeto. So questions from the audience, okay? We'll take the first three hands that are here. I'll start with the gentleman in front here.
Good morning, good afternoon, or still morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, panel, for the very, very incisive presentations. My name is Peter Essien, and I head a company called Vertitech Energy Solutions. We're into the renewable energy space, and it's quite interesting that we have so much resources locally in the country, but we're not able to tap into the resources, and we find out that countries in the western part of the world who struggle to get sunlight, actually do well with the use of renewable energy. Let me go straight to my point. One aspect that I don't know if it's been discussed right now with All On or with Kabota, is the part of the commissioning of the panels. So right now we see that by decommissioning, I mean recycling of the panels. So we see a lot of preaching about the use of renewable energy, and we see a lot of panels coming in. Have we thought of the effects of a lot of panels accumulation when these panels, when we don't have to use them again? What plans are in place? Are the policies in place to ensure that we don't, after 20 years, which is about the time the lifespan for most panels, after 20 years, we don't have piles of panels littering everywhere, and then the solution we think we've solved with power, we then begin to face another problem with solar panels everywhere. That's one area I want us to discuss.
Thank you very much, sir. Who would like to respond to that? Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Thanks. Happy to take a stab at that. So you're quite right. Because the sector is quite nascent, young, and the lifetime of panels is widely stated to be around 25 years. We haven't got there yet, where we're going to have this mass dump of panels that have reached their end of life. As far as policy is concerned, I'm not a policy expert, but I do see, from an operational point of view, a lot of companies today engaging in the sort of regeneration or recycling of e-waste. So we don't have any waste in terms of panels today, but we have waste in terms of other components, and we, within our portfolio, have companies that are in the business of using e-waste to produce their own solar home systems, their own solar lanterns, their own products. I can only imagine that if we are not, it's going to be a global issue, right? And so there will be insights somewhere out there first, and then the rest of the world will take learnings from that. We already have companies today that are in that business of manufacturing, and so definitely at some point before we get there, hopefully, we should be addressing this. But you're absolutely right. It should be an issue that remains top of mind as we continue to expand and promote the adoption of renewables. Absolutely.
Shouldn't the question and the focus be on batteries, which have a shorter lifespan?
answer that, I can give a more direct response.
Yeah, so, because typically they're about 8 to 12 years, shorter than the actual panels themselves. And battery dumping is seen as quite a big challenge in the sector as well. But thank you for your question, Mr. Essien. So I think we had 2 other questions at the back. Let's go with the lady first, please.
All right, good morning. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Shokwe Falano. And I have a question. I actually have 2 questions, but one of them has been addressed on financing. So my question is as to whether we are averting our minds to the use of the non-variable renewable energy sources. So I hear the issue with having assembly and manufacturing plants for solar and for wind. And I'm just checking, we have other non-variable renewable sources that are not intermittent in nature. For example, we're in Lagos State. Everyone knows that Lagos is a waste-generating state, right? So what are we doing in terms of biomass, the large hydro, the other sources that we can actually tap in is readily available for us? I remember that 2 years ago or so, Lagos State had an initial waste-to-energy project facility. I'm not sure what has been done so far on that, but is this something that, for example, Ikeja Electric Distribution Company and parent company is looking at, investing in biomass, investing in large hydro sources? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sholakwe, you're right. Mrs. Shoiton has had to log off because she has a 12 o'clock, but the organizers will convey your questions specifically to her as well. But I'm wondering if there's anybody here who'd like to respond to.
Yeah, I just want to say that we have diverse, like I said in one of my sessions, I said that Nigeria, for example, is blessed with so much natural resources. And I'm sure that I mentioned organic waste also. There's what we call, research is ongoing on recycling and the reuse of organic waste. And one of the reuse of organic waste is to use it to generate electricity. All right, so work is going on in all these areas, even beyond the biomass. We're also talking about thermal energy, tapping from the heat from the earth, right? And we also look at the tidal, energy that we can also get from the sea. Like Lagos State, we have beaches around us, where we have good tides, right? That we can trap, energy from them. And I can also tell you that even when you talk about the wind energy now, technology is not, they have bladeless wind, what do we call it now? That traps, wind by its vibration. You see, technology is ongoing in all these areas. People are researching into the use of these various natural resources that we have all around us to generate electricity. I can just assure you that work is ongoing. Personally, I was making a research on, how to clean environmental waste, especially the bio waste, the marine waste. And so realize that this marine waste can also be used for generating electricity. So research is ongoing.
Thank you very much, sir. And indeed, even in the hydrocarbon space, I know carbon capture, utilization and storage, CCUS technology is also evolving. We had one more question, or maybe 2 more. I know there was another gentleman in the back. I think after this, we can probably take 2 more brief questions, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Malobi Okbeche. I am the MD of Dubi Nigeria, and we participate in the waste management space, upstream oil and gas. Since last year, we've been participating in the solid mineral space, exporting minerals like lithium. My question, I think, is more directed to Mr. Sele. You mentioned very briefly that, there's not very much manufacturing going on in the upstream when it comes to solar energy. And more specifically, I want to talk about batteries. We all know that storage is actually, if not the major expense when it comes to solar energy. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that we're not focusing on manufacturing, assembling batteries, and not just lithium batteries? Because, now lithium's hot, China is buying all of our lithium, but we have lead acid batteries. There's a small companies doing recycling of lead acid batteries. We have lead in Plateau State, Ebonyi State. Why aren't we pushing and putting more of an investment and effort into manufacturing of batteries to accompany the solar energy? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I think that there is, at least from Allon's perspective, there is definitely appetite to invest and support commercially, non-commercially, in the production and manufacture space across all components. We're big proponents of that. I mentioned earlier, we've done with Oxano, we've done it with Salfa, who are producing their own solar home systems. We've had conversations with a number of companies, some in our portfolio, who have expressed interest in developing battery manufacturing or battery assembly plants. We've had conversations with companies who are in the business of battery regeneration as well. And I think, in a way, it kind of goes back to the point I made earlier as well about funding aligning with risk. So there is a certain threshold or level of entry for an investor like Allon, and the business has to be proven, to an extent, for us to back, because obviously there's a return expected on the capital that we allocate. I think that businesses involved in that space, they need to. It's about identifying the right sources of funding that will help with that early stage of growth of a manufacturing or an assembly business. And then you will get the usual suspect of investors and funders that we think about today, whether it's the commercial lenders or the private equity investors coming in as well. It's really just that it's unknown. And once you're faced with the unknown, then there is a certain risk ascribed to that, and you either want to participate or you don't. Allon tries to be a de-risker in this space. I'm not saying that we avoid every and anything. We actually do put money into the system at single digits to try and leverage and stimulate further capital from other investors who, once they hear that Allon's an investor, it then makes it easier for them to come in and follow up rounds. But then also it goes back to, we are not the total cure for the space, and you do need to find, whether it's the grant funders, the DFIs, those who are funding research and those who are funding pilots, to be able to then back businesses that are looking at manufacturing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Inegbejan. Do we have any more questions in the room? Okay, if you just hold that. I understand that Mrs. Shoeton is back online, as the meeting she was meant to go on started a bit late. So I wanted her to be able to give her passing words and then perhaps respond to a question on opportunities for waste to energy. Is that something that Ikeja Electric would look at? Mrs. Shoeton, please. Can you hear us?
All right. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry. Had to log out. I'm committed to 12 o'clock. I have a meeting that's literally going to start in 2 minutes. But I thought, let me close out properly. With regards to the question, it's something we're definitely exploring. I will take details of the individual and follow up with them. First of all, I'd like to thank the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce for asking me to be part of this panel. It's been a learning session for myself as well. Thank you, Rolake, for doing a fantastic job of moderating this session. In closing, for me, I just would like to reiterate that the transition to renewable energy is an imperative for a sustainable future in Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. And I think that so long as we have data-driven strategies, have a collaborative mindset, and just have collaborative partnerships with such supportive policies from both the government and, of course, our regulators, I think we can collectively usher in this era of clean and renewable, reliable energy for Nigeria. And I think we can do this together. The process of even having this discussion, I'm amazed at the number of developers. I mean, so many developers that have come to us as a disco, and it has just opened my eyes to the possibilities and the amount of knowledge that exists out there. So I think creating the awareness is important. Also connecting people with the right type of funders, the right type of resources, also being deliberate about including this as part of our curriculum, even in the Nigerian educational system. I'm a board member of Women Energy Network. It's something we're doing. We even have a hub to try and at least ensure that we're also contributing to that development. So together, I think that we can illuminate the path towards a greener tomorrow. And I'd like to just say thank you once again for giving the opportunity to be part of this panel. Thank you very much, everyone. Well, like, did you hear me? I can't hear anything.
Good afternoon.
I can't hear. No. Hello.
Online hosts, please help us out. Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear me, Laura?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I can go now.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kayode from Ulisa Agbakoba Legal, a law firm with public sector practice developing public policy development, and we have a strong practice group for energy as well. I want to thank NBCC for this privilege to be here. Now, we are trying to capture or to develop a knowledge base on renewable energy, innovation, transition, and opportunities. Now, I see that all of us have mentioned the innovation, the transition, the opportunities, but we have left the challenges out of our discussion. Nigeria has been a country of hydrocarbon for over 60 years. We have not been able to harness potentially the benefit of hydrocarbon. Coincidentally, all African countries at the moment are known for developing or discovering hydrocarbon in a way or the other in their various territories. And at this instance, you now see the world coming to say, let's clamp down on hydrocarbon development. Don't invest in hydrocarbon investment. All the banks are informed to discontinue financing or supporting hydrocarbon development. Now, this is my question. Now, Mr. Sele, your company is investing in materials supporting renewable energy. And how do you know, or what will you want to tell us here that how do Nigeria as a country benefit from your investment? Because we don't have the industries to produce most of the things you highlighted in your talk. It means you are giving our hard-earned money and support and energy to other clients to produce for us, and we end up being the dumping ground again. Now, number two is this. What is the implication of your investment on Nigerian economy? Nigeria is hydrocarbon, and our revenue is coming from this hydrocarbon, and we cannot shy away from the fact that our economy is in dire straits at the moment. So we need money, and it's from hydrocarbon. In fact, hydrocarbon, like I said earlier, we have not harnessed it. Our resources is stolen. We are depleted now. We are broke as a nation, and you are investing in renewable energy, which is going to kill our source of revenue. So, and from Rolake's comment, she said, for every investment in hydrocarbon, we create 2 jobs. And for renewable, we create 10 jobs. Now, hydrocarbon, we have not harnessed it. We are creating 10 jobs in renewable energy that is not even visible, because the job she mentioned, to my own understanding, would be for those people who are producing most of the materials we are bringing into this country. My dear brother Sele, please advise me.
Thank you very much. I feel like that question should be directed to the public sector, but please answer as much as you're able to.
Forgive me, I didn't catch your name. Kaide, thank you for the questions, the very many loaded questions. taking them in different order, I guess the first thing to reiterate is that Olon is a subsidiary of Shell in Nigeria. And Shell, obviously being one of the majors here, is a hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is the business. Shell will not start a business that is necessarily contrary to its core, but rather it's an investment in the future. The analogy I might use is, take for instance our education system. A lot of people complain about its state today, and we talk about universities, but if you really want to invest in the sector long term, you have to look at, take a step back and look at primary education as well. Then you know that you are investing and you have 10, 20, 50 years into the future in mind. And the same thing is what we are doing here. We are not saying at all that because we are invested, that renewable is our business, that our core revenue earner as a country, or what the entire populace is supported on, has to stop today. There is a transition plan. There is a horizon, right, that we expect this will take in terms of time. It was mentioned earlier, I think, that last year renewables, and I think, specifically solar, contributed only 3% of Nigeria's power. So there's no way we can turn the lights off on hydrocarbon. But we also do need to start thinking today about the future. And that's what Olon is doing. The investments that we make, they start to prop up an otherwise non-existent market or sector. We have to build that, and it has to start from somewhere. Olon is proud to be, I guess, at the center of that market driving force. It's not just about today. We have our mandate for today and the next 10 years, but it's about sustainability for the future. I won't necessarily speak to the hydrocarbon side of things, because that is what I'm not government. I'm not saying anything about regulations that should curb the production of our fossil fuels. In fact, if anything, the Nigerian government, like other African governments, are standing up against the international community, saying you can't just levy on us the same approach that you are taking just because you're industrialized already. There's got to be a transition period. We are supportive of that 100%. Yes, the investments that we make today and the companies that we are propping up, there are jobs being created. Jobs are very essential. I mean, if you look at the rates of unemployment today, you have to try and create jobs in as many sectors as you can. We're creating direct jobs in the companies that we invest in, whether they are permanent or temporary from a contracting point of view. And indirectly, the consumers of the renewable are then, particularly in rural communities where there is no grid access for them to even enjoy the power that our fossil fuels are providing, and where renewable energy therefore is the alternative. Those communities, the businesses in those communities are then empowered to grow their businesses, to hire more people. So you are empowering a community, you're lifting up the low income bracket as well. Even if the margin by which we are doing that today is not maybe significant in everyone's eyes, it's still adding to the overall quota. So net, the renewable energy charge today is positive, and it's essential and crucial. As that's our perspective. I'm happy to have further discussions if you like.
Thank you. Mr. Elegbe, did you want to say briefly any response to that?
I just want to say that as it is right now, we are not completely downplaying on hydrocarbons, because that's what we are still using. And when we're talking about renewable energy, it's just upcoming, it's just growing, right? So at a time, there's going to be a balance, and then we'll start playing down, little by little hydrocarbons, mainly for environmental reasons and sustainability. So we have the hydrocarbons there, and we are still producing, right? But what we are saying is that the negative effect of the hydrocarbon, is enormous. In our public health, of course, is negative and all that. So what we are saying here is, okay, so if the hydrocarbon is producing a negative effect, and we have a cleaner energy that is not producing negative effect, why can't we start up with the one that is not producing negative effect and it balances up, and then take down on this other one? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, I would also maybe perhaps round off by saying that I think generally I espouse the principle that we should not throw the baby out of the bathwater. What we should be looking at about is complementarity rather than necessary substitution. I also think, Mr. Kayode, that there's a broader governance challenge around the management and sustainability of hydrocarbon resources, which can then be plowed back into more sustainable forms of energy. And I think that's going to require both private sector and public sector collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the discussion. I hope you found that really insightful. I'd like to thank our three panelists, Mr. Sele Inegbedon, All-On Hub Manager, Mr. Wale Elegbede, COO of Kabota Energy Services, and Mrs. Folakemi Shoeson, the CEO of Ikeja Electric. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion, and it's been my pleasure to be your moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm sure we can do better than that, because this event has been largely educating, it's broadened our mind, and we've reset whatever it is we have. It's been very, very rich. And to Sele, to Wale, to Folake, you guys have been really, really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And we know definitely what to expect, what exists, and what to do in terms of policy and regulation. And like Folake said, it is an imperative, and collectively, we all must make it happen. So we're not done yet. Just give us a few more minutes, and we now go to the order of photographs. But before I do that, I must acknowledge my chairman, the chairman of the Energy Group, Mr. Taj Shobayo. He's unavoidably absent. He sends his apologies. He's on national assignment. And of course, he delegated me to do what I'm doing. And I hope I'm doing a good job. Okay. So on that note, I would like to invite our minted president and chairman of council to please come up for the gift presentation to our speakers. And one after the other, we will take Mr. Sele Inegbedion first. Where are the photographers? Do we need this out of the place, or it's okay? Right. Sele, can you please get your gift? And as we're doing so, if you love what Sele did, please give him a round of attention. Applause, sorry.
Yes, thank you very much, Sele. We have listened, and the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce wants to appreciate your contribution today. It's an ongoing discourse, and you have set the ball rolling, and I'm sure that when we get all the materials digested, we are going to start this journey on a firmer footing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then we have Mr. Wale Elegbede. Please join our president and chairman in council for pictures. Sele, you're going to come back later. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Elegbede, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence and sharing with us some of those very interesting insights into renewable energy. I'm very much interested in the fleet of renewable energy trucks that you are deploying. That will help a lot. And I'm sure that it is an initiative that others will want to copy. So once again, thank you for coming. And the NBCC would like to appreciate your contribution today with this token.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, to our fantastic moderator, Rolake, a member of the Energy Group as well, I must say. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is yet another time that I'll be presenting a gift from the NBCC to Rolake. And why so? Because she's been very supportive. All right, thank you for the masterful way that you handled today's session. And hopefully, we are going to be seeing more of her, because that's part of the commitment that we got from her. Thank you very much for a job well done, and we want to appreciate you.
Yes. Can we have all the speakers back again to take a picture with our President and Chair in Council, with Mr. Raf Bobo. Mr. Raf Bobo, can you please join them? Thank you. Not yet. So the Deputy President will join them now. Can we have representatives from SNG and Kabota join? Representatives of SNG and Kabota, thank you. While the representatives take their seat, can we have members of EXCO and Council join the team? I'll now invite Mr. Tajuddin Ahmed. Can we turn down the music, please? Thank you. Mr. Tajuddin Ahmed to give the vote of thanks and other announcements.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Energy Committee. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tajuddin Ahmed. I'm the chairman of the Programs Committee of the Chamber. As we come to the close of this exceptional event, to stand before you on behalf of the Chamber, to express our heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering presence and active participation. What a day we've had with a very masterful moderation by Rolake Akinkunbi-Filani. Your engagement has truly made this event a resounding success, and we are deeply thankful for your valuable contributions. I wish to make special appreciation to our speakers, Mrs. Caroline Mbubu, ably represented by Mr. Sele Enegbedion, and Mr. Akintayo Raymond, ably represented by Mr. Wale Ilegbede. Also, a special thanks to our moderator, Mrs. Rolake Akinkunbi-Filani, the President and Chairman of Council, Mr. Ray Artley. Like Mrs. Aziz said, newly minted President and Chairman of Council, Mr. Ray Artley, FRPA. I also wish to recognize members of ESCO and Council here present, and our sponsors, Shell Nigeria and Kabota Group, for their generous support. Ladies and gentlemen, the Energy Group of the Chamber and the staff of the NBCC headquarters for this remarkable event we just had. I'd like to mention our upcoming events, just 5 of them. MSME Business Optimization Clinic scheduled to hold here at the Chamber, at the Plaza, on Thursday, September 28, 2023. Our EduTech Conference is scheduled to hold on Wednesday, October 4, 2023, right at the Plaza here. The Nigerian-British Golf Tournament scheduled to hold on Friday, October 20, 2023. I'd also like you to know that our state-of-the-art facility is open and available for hire at affordable rates. For your corporate events, training, seminars, and meetings, visit us today to make bookings or reservations. Finally, if you're interested in becoming a member of the Chamber and you want to enjoy the very fruitful and pragmatic discussion we had today, please visit our website, www.nbcc.org.ng, or meet with our membership team at the registration desk just after the door. In terms of feedback, we like to have your feedback. Is important to us, and because it improves our events, kindly scan the barcode that's shown on the screen to give your feedback regarding this event. Finally, please follow us on social media to be informed of all our activities on Instagram at NBCC_NG, on LinkedIn, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, on Facebook, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. My job is done. Sorry, lunch is served. We paid for it. We got it, so we need to consume it. Thank you. Lunch is just after the door. We can continue our conversations. Yeah, thank you.